Hey guys, obviously it's the same day as the video I posted yesterday. Well, yeah. Anyway, I thought I'll come on here and show you how much I actually love you. I am shattered. I'm sure you can see on my face that I'm really tired. Um, I just uploaded my video, my Monday video. It's 12:08 in the morning. I was like 9 minutes late posting it, the time that I did. But anyway, yeah, so I thought I'll come on here and I will give you a brief analysis. Well, not brief, I'm talking like very like, okay, I want to give you movie recap, analysis, and um, and then my own experience. No, other people's experience and then my own experience. So this video will be separated into 4 parts. Just to warn you, this is basically about the new movie called Smile, and it does have this video does have spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, I suggest you quickly watch the movie and then um, yeah, and then you watch this video. Anyway, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Nicole. Welcome to Ride Along with Nicole. So, um, a brief recap on the movie Smile. So, this movie, it starts off with basically an overworked therapist. She's actually she's actually a counsellor slash therapist. Um, she works in the psychiatric ward, mental institution. Anyway, she just got off of like a really long like all-nighter shift, and her manager was like, have you been here since the late shift, why don't you go home? So anyway, we see her going, getting her coat on, and she's about to go home, and she leaves the room, and then the phone rings. And this part is really important because there's a bit of a butterfly effect, because instead of listening to her manager and listening to her tired body, she decides to run back into the room and answer the phone. Something that she's probably gonna regret until her last breath, basically. Anyway, so she answers the phone, and it's basically like this. It's basically like this girl. She's like really traumatized. She was witnessed witnessed her teacher or professor, whoever he was, bludgeon his own face with a hammer, and she's saying that ever since then she's been seeing random things, like random people. It could be people she knows, it could be people who has already deceased. She even mentioned she sees her dead grandfather, who literally died in front of her when she was 9, which is actually, yeah, died in her arms to be exact. Which that part is actually important, and I'll get to that part later on. So anyway, so she's basically saying that these entity, she's trying to say it's like an entity, and what they do is they stand there and smile at her, and it's not a nice friendly smile. It's more like a really creepy, broad, scary smile. And no one really thinks of I mean, like, you can think of a horrible smile, but no one actually thinks of, oh my god, such a horrible smile. You know, like, when people see something that's smiling, you know, like, it's usually nice. So I think it's like really original. Um, I think, sorry, yeah, I think that, yeah, so anyway, she's basically, oh, did you hear that? Anyway, so she's traumatized and then she sees what she sees. She says that nobody else can see this but her. And the therapist is all like, yes, but sometimes you think you can see things but you can't. You know, it's just trauma, it's in your mind, it can't hurt you. And the girl is like, you're not listening. Like, you're like, I'm not crazy. Like, I've got a bachelor degree in whatever she said, I don't know, or PhD in something. She's like, I'm not insane. Like, there's just something that's happening to me, and then she sees the entity, and then, she sees. Well, we see like from the therapist's point of view. I actually forgot the name. I actually forgot her name. I think her name's April. I don't know. Comment down below if you remember her name. I forgot the name. She's the main character, so that's really bad. Anyway, so basically, she's like screaming now because she can see this entity coming towards her. Because she also said, you know, today's her last day, and she sees this entity coming towards her, and then she does this sort of choking sort of noise, and then the therapist, April, she gets so like panicked, she quickly runs over to the phone to report, you know, like a patient is, you know, going a little crazy. So anyway, so when she gets off the phone, she looks to the spot where the girl had fallen, you know, like like very dramatically, very much like, oh my god, you know, like I'm dying, and this entity that you can't see is killing me. Anyway, so then she turns around and then she sees her smiling the same smile she described that she's been seeing. And then she's holding a piece of like broken glass or broken clay. She cuts her face from here all the way down to her throat like this, and you know, she's just bleeding out, and even as she's bleeding out she's still smiling, which is literally like impossible. So anyway, so sorry, like when I'm tired, like my throat goes all croaky. Anyway, so she goes home, like April goes home, and she's like traumatized. She's like trying to open a bottle of wine, and then she looks over and she could see like this very faint figure smiling back at her, you know, like, and she's not too sure if it's because she's tired or if she's seeing things, but we as the audience see it, and it's so faint. It's so like amazing how they done that, because they did it in a way of, you could be just looking into the dark and seeing some figure which you think is what you see, or is it actually what you think it is. Um, so so yeah, like so obviously she's now, basically she's now, because she witnessed the suicide, she's now being affected. She's seeing like all these different entities and everything, and I'll get to the fact that the the girl anyway, what was I gonna say? Sorry. So she's like trying to figure out a way of seeing if there's, I'm gonna be really quick. She's trying to figure out a way of seeing if there's any connection whatsoever, you know, like, and she's going back and she's asking, she's got this ex-boyfriend who happens to be a police officer who, you know, she gets to help her research cases that's similar, and they find going back 20 years. Anyway, so she goes to see this guy in prison who's the only sole survivor who knows what this is, and like he's in prison because he killed someone and there's a witness. So he's basically tells her, oh, you know, the only way to break the cycle is if you kill someone, but you have to have a witness because this entity, it feeds on trauma. Like that's what it feeds on. So anyway, um, she's also got this other her own therapist, and she was thinking, right, I'm not gonna, you know, it's just like no, 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 I'm not going to kill anyone. And then she cuts her thumb by accident, and yeah, she cuts her thumb by accident, and then no, I fast forward. I went too far. No, there's a scene where her sister's like sort of stuck up, you know, and her sister has a son and a husband. April also has a husband as well, but you know the sister has a son as well, and it's his birthday on that Saturday. Um, so yeah, so she buys him a train for his birthday, and she's wrapping it, and then you know all sorts happens because she starts seeing things and hallucinations and of well, it's not hallucinations, it really is that. But anyway, yeah. So basically, she's also got a cat who. She's basically got a cat, yeah, who goes missing. His name is Moustache. Anyway, long story short, she hands him her nephew on his birthday a present, and inside though is basically her dead cat, which she swears she did wrap, which she didn't. She was under the impression that she had wrapped a train. Her husband is like decides to be a complete douchebag and make her feel so small about her mental state. Her manager tells her to take a week off. So yeah. So anyway, fast forward, she cuts herself at home by accident, and she has the idea of taking her own life. But just at that moment when she's reaching for a knife, her therapist knocks the door. And I did think, funny timing. She wants to end her life now when there's now when there's literally like no witnesses, but you won't allow that, so you're gonna send someone. So anyway, she's talking to her therapist. She's saying her husband thinks she's crazy, blah 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 blah. You know, like she feels alone, and she's talking, and then her phone rings, and it's her therapist. But the problem is, her therapist is sitting in front of her until the therapist smiles, and she's like, oh no, 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 no. You know, like the therapist is like literally like chasing her around the house. It's just scary, like basically just super, super scary. Oh my god. So she comes to the conclusion that, okay, she needs to be alone. So she goes to her childhood house. Also, yeah, we also learned that her mum committed suicide. Her mum committed, well, not committed suicide, but her mum died. Um, her When she was 10 years old, her mum was a bit of a drunk, and her mum basically just, yeah, her mum basically just, she asked her daughter for help, and her daughter was just a little girl, only 10 years old, very used to seeing her mum, in like a really bad mental state. Like her mum had mental health problems. She was a bit of a drunk, and her mum asked her to call for help, but instead she ran away, and and then her mum died, and she was the one to find the body, which is kind of funny how the lady who passed her this curse before she died, she also witnessed one of her family members dying. So I sort of think that there's something in that, like that there's that they have that in common, basically. Anyway, so she goes to her childhood home. Everything is abandoned. One thing that I have to say though before I go on, like number one, she done a few dumb things. Number one, like, why are you walking around your house when you have no lights on? Like, you've got a real nice house. I'm sure electricity bills is not a problem for you. Why are you not going to turn on the light? The night she witnessed the suicide, and even after that, she's just been forever in the dark. Like, what does horror movies do with these things? And no matter how many times we laugh at the fact that that part of it is like totally unrealistic, because would you really be in the dark? No, you wouldn't. And then another thing, she drives all the way to the house, and she doesn't want her ex-boyfriend, who's a cop, to find her, yet still she's got her phone on her, knowing that he's a cop, knowing he can track her, and if he does track her, and the like, that won't be good, basically. So she's just having like all these delusions. She thinks that some things are real. She thinks each time she thinks she's gonna get out of the situation, she doesn't. She thinks that like she spoke to her mum, who was the ghost, or like fake entity of the mum, but then she's just like basically just like released all this tension she's been building up, and then her mum like grew into some giant monster, and then she set her mum on fire and left the house. But then she went to the ex's house and basically asked him to be with her again. But but then we see like the ex is not the ex. It's like, he's like, what is he saying? He's like, yeah, she's like, oh, well, I was hoping that, I could sleep here for a couple nights, and I could hope that you could stay with me when I'm asleep. And he's like, yeah, I'll stay with you. I'll stay with you forever. And she's like, what? And then he looks up and he smiles, and she's like, oh no, I thought I killed this thing. And then runs towards the front door, and she's back at the cabin. And then by this time, the real him is pulling up at the cabin, and she knows exactly what's about to happen. She knows that either she's going to be forced to kill him or commit suicide in front of him. So, which and she cares about him. She's realized, you know, like she loves him or whatever, and she doesn't, like, he's been helping her and she doesn't really want, like, so anyway, he kicks down the door, like he basically like kicks down the door because she runs back inside and closes the door. But then we see like we see basically like she's, like, my back is itching. I think 'cause this sports bra is just like really tight. Anyway, so we see the, you know, like the ghost has her now, like the entity has her. She's like not surrendered, but being forced to surrender. And then she lights herself on fire, and basically he watches, like he's forced to watch, which again, I'm not being bad, and I feel so sorry for April, but if I was in that situation and I know, you know all of it, you know, you've got all the information now. She's standing in front of you, covered in petrol, smiling, and about to light a match, and you're still there. You're still just standing there, like, what are you waiting for? Like, what are you waiting for? Like, by this time, you can see by the smile, she's been taken. Like, you can see, okay, she's definitely been taken over. And he's like, no, you don't want to do this. Don't do it. It's like, it's not her. Anyway, she basically kills herself, and he watches stupidly when he knows all the information, because I don't know, like maybe it's like the absolute shock that, you know, like he's seeing it. Maybe it's because he's thinking, okay, is this for real? Is this an act? Is he thinking, we don't know what he's thinking basically, like why he's still there. Is he so like traumatized by the smile? Does the smile do something to you to make you stay put? Like, does it hypnotize you to sort of stay centered? I don't know. So anyway, that was the end of the movie, and I know it don't sound like much, but I'm guessing you're here because you watched the movie. Anyway, I'm going to do the next 3 parts in the morning because I am shattered, and I really have so much points to go into about that, and so I really don't want to do this video half-heartedly. I want to put my all into it, so I'll probably film again tonight. I mean tomorrow night. So you can see how tired I am. Like literally. Yeah, literally, like, I'm so tired. I forgot. This morning I went to yoga, and then I went to work, and I've done one video, and then I've done this. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, and tomorrow my day's going to be more busy because I won't be doing the relaxing yoga. I'll be doing like a full gym workout, plus going to work, plus going to a heels class. So I expect to be absolutely like knackered tomorrow. So I'll probably do this video in the morning, I think, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Why am I saying that? I'm not finished this video. This video is not finished. You'll see the next part in the morning. Well, I'll film the next part in the morning. Anyway. See you soon. Hey peeps. Oops. I am awake. Sorry, it's coming my lips. I am so sorry about, right, obviously I'm gonna, you don't need to know because obviously you're only gonna see what I show you. Anyway, I'm much more alive now. I'm not yawning. I'm so sorry for that. But anyway, it's the next day and I thought I'll finish up this video. So, and I've written down some notes as well. So now we're at the point of analysis, like me analysing like the movie. So one thing that I did find interesting, which I mentioned before, the fact that the girl who died in front of April, yeah, did we call it April? Yeah, we called her April. Anyway, so because she died in front of April, before she died though, she said something interesting. You know, she said, you know, well, she sees her dead grandfather who died in front of her when she was 9 or 10. She said one of those ages. And I find it really interesting because also at 10 years old, her mum asked her for help, and she's being just a little girl, just seeing her mum struggling with mental illness, not knowing if her mum is... I mean, it never really specified like what the mum's mental illness was, like if she had an alcohol problem, drug problem, or if she was just, you know, mentally ill. I think it was just mentally ill. But obviously she's a little girl, but she's, you know, her mum asked her for help and she ran away instead. And her mum, when she come back, her mum was dead, and she's carried that guilt, and that's why she went into psychiatric care, and well, basically went into her career was in the field of like psychiatric care. So anyway, so I found that really interesting because it's like she passed on, obviously she passed on her curse to her when she committed suicide in front of her, which literally scared the life out of me. But I found it really interesting, the fact that both of them had that in common. But also what I've always also found interesting is the police officer found the case going back 20 years. Now, it never really says how old April is, but if I was to guess, I'd probably say she's about 30. You know, like either late 20s or 30. I'll probably say she's 30, you know, like she's quite, you know, like far into her career. She lives in a beautiful house, lovely husband, drives nice cars. I'd say she's about 30. Which makes me feel insecure, but still, she's about 30. So that's what I personally think. And if you do the math, her mum died when she was 10. Like when she was talking to, well, the ghost of her mum or this imposter, whatever it is, you know, she says, I was 10 years old. So obviously from the moment her mum died, was the spirit her actual mother? Like, is this entity her mum? Now, if you think about it, like I'm about to get really deep, you know, with mental health, a lot of people who don't understand mental health, and especially back then, 20 years ago, people didn't understand mental health like whatsoever. Not really. Like now when you say, oh, you struggle with mental health, you know, you get some, you know, people sympathetic, people say, oh yeah, me too, blah, blah, blah. Back in the day, 20 years ago, if you used to say you struggle with mental health, people will be running away from you, thinking that, you know, you're about to like start banging your head on the wall or something. Like, that's basically how it was. So a lot of people who were suffering from mental health was forced to fake their happiness, you know, like just put on a smile, you know. People with mental health issues was told, get over it, focus on just being happy. You know, if you act happy, then eventually you'll be happy. Like they're told all these different things, from family members, to friends, to, you know, some people thought it was attention seeking, because mental health, nobody, when you don't really talk about something, it don't really, those that suffering don't really feel listened to or heard or anything like that. So I think it's really interesting how she died 20 years ago, and she died 20 years ago, and from then it's been this smile thing, seeing different people just smiling, this horrible smile. And it's funny that it's a horrible smile as well, because it's like a forced smile, or a smile that's showing that there's something not quite right, you know, like there's something not quite right with the smile. And when they're smiling but then they commit suicide, it's also like, I wonder if that's also like a what's the word, metaphor, you know, like, okay, I'm smiling, you know, because the world wants me to be happy, but inside I'm hurt, so I'm going to commit suicide, but I'm going to fake a smile, you know what I mean? And so, and also the fact that the little girl ran away, probably the mum in her, you wouldn't you? I mean, like, even though 10, you know, her daughter was only 10, that's still, I don't know, like, even though her daughter was just a little girl, didn't quite understand, she was scared of her mum, you know, because her mum suffered really badly with mental health issues. And but if, as a mum, if you're asking your child for help, bear in mind your oldest child like left home as soon as she could, because also April has an older sister I mentioned before who's like really stuck up. So anyway, so she left home as soon as she could, leaving poor little April to deal with her mum, you know, at such a small age. So um, yeah, so as a mum, you have your oldest child who's like skipped town ages ago, and then the child who's remaining, the child who's supposed to love you and call you mummy and say, you know, like, you're supposed to be their world, you know, because you're their mummy, and you're asking your child for help because you feel like something is really wrong, and your child runs away, and then you die on your own. And yeah, April came back and she saw her mum was dead and she felt guilty. But I think the mum, all of this, you know, um, all of the cases, it's all connected because of the mum. Like, if you're gonna commit suicide, you have to have someone watching you. Like, you have to do it in front of someone. There has to be a witness. Remember, the mum died alone, you know, so it's sort of like the mum not wanting to die alone, like hating the fact that she was forced to die alone, like hating the fact that her daughter ran away. And then also, if you kill someone, you also have to have a witness. Again, the daughter didn't kill the mum technically, but it's a bit of a grey area because she's a little girl and she doesn't quite understand. As I said before, mental health wasn't really spoken about before. And I mean, like, obviously, as an adult, if you think about it, like, if someone was to ask me for help because they're dying and I just walked away or ran away or whatever, I could get into some serious trouble by law, because that is it an accessory to? I don't know. I mean, it was a murder. It was a murder, but at the same time, it was like, it's basically a grey area, basically. So you have to have a witness if you're gonna kill someone, and I think that's also the mum sort of wishing someone was there to see she was in agony and her daughter ran away, or someone to see, you know what I mean? That's what I think that is. Like, that's basically what I think that is. Um, but yeah. But one thing that I have to say though is, like, was April evil? Now, me personally, like, was she stupid or was she evil? I personally think, a lot of people, in the, especially, I don't know why, but it's always the women, they always portray the women to be super dumb in these situations. So obviously, someone commits suicide in front of you in the most horrific way. They're literally having some manic episode, like screaming for their lives 1 minute, and then the next they're moved from that spot and they're standing upwards holding like a blade and with the same smile that they're wearing that they described before. 1 minute. I'm doing a video! Anyway, so it's like if you I don't know, if you witness something like that, like, would you be going around pretending everything's fine? Like, the husband comes home and you're like, oh yeah, like, he's like, oh, how was your day today? Oh yeah, like, it's fine, my day was fine. And he's like, no, something's wrong. And then you say, oh, a patient died today. She committed suicide in front of me. It wasn't just that. And do you know how long it takes for her to actually open up about what she's seeing? Like, the thing is, I get it. Like, okay, you don't want to look crazy. You're wondering if you are crazy. You're wondering if, everything she said and the fact that she committed suicide and the way she did it, you're thinking, did it psychologically affect you? But at the same time, your own mind, and you know that before this you was totally sane. So obviously, everything she described to you, you can see is happening to you, and it's always like, no, I'm fine. Yeah, I just had a stressful day. I guess I'm just stressed. Walking around with, like, in the dark. Like, why do they do this in horror movies? I mean, like, it's so unrealistic. I mean, like, me as a normal person, I don't walk around in the dark. If I'm going to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, I turn on the light. If I'm doing my washing and it's late at night, I turn on the light. If I'm going to the toilet, I turn on the light. If I'm doing something in my room and it's dark, I turn on the light. Like, you turn on the light. Like, people don't just go into the fridge, pour, like, try and figure their way out in the dark to pour a glass of wine. Like, especially after seeing something or witnessing something so horrific. So anyway, I mean, the when the police is also interviewing her, she's like, and they're like, oh, could you give us anything that can help? And she's like, oh, and she takes a moment to think, and I'm like, what are you thinking about? Like, it's obvious, like, you're supposed to be like a psychologist or whatever. Like, you're supposed to be a psychologist. Could you just analyze, like, the whole situation and see it for what it actually is? So she's like, when she committed, just before she committed suicide, she was smiling, and even while she was bleeding out, and there's like the blood, and she was still smiling, and it's like, yeah, she was, and that's also good to mention. But why don't you mention anything else that she said prior to her dying that would, you know, I mean, is it just me? Like, I would say, okay, these are all the things she was saying before she had this manic episode where she threw herself into the corner of the room screaming and then, like almost gasping for air. Next minute when finished off the phone to call for help, I turn around, she's not there. I turn around and she's like, standing normally as if she's like fine now, but she's not because she's got this really creepy smile on her face, and then she just commits suicide right in front of me. Kind of like how, you know, she witnessed someone committing suicide in front of her. You know what I mean? Anyway, but the reason why you have to question as well if she's evil. Now, Mustache is her cat, and her there's a scene where her house was like broken into. Yeah, there's a scene where her house was broken into and she was on the phone with the operating team, but then it turned out to be, like the entity or whatever. Like, it makes you feel like you can't trust reality, or like it's it's so weird. Like, it's like it distorts your reality basically. But she's looking for her cat, which is called Moustache, which I think is such an adorable name for a cat. But yeah, so she's looking for this cat for all but 20 minutes. It's kind of obvious that something is up with the cat. Anyway, she goes back inside. I don't know what she does, but it skips to. She goes to her. She goes to her nephew's party. Yeah, she goes to her nephew's party, and she she bought a train, and a toy train. But inside the box, instead of it being the train, it's the dead cat. And you also have to question as well, like, when you picked up the box, obviously a toy train, they ain't gonna be that heavy. I mean, it might be. I mean, like, she did look like she went into one of those expensive children's toy shops, but like antique shop. But at the same time, even if it was heavy, a heavy toy train, a dead cat would weigh like double the amount or even triple the amount of what a toy train would. You know what I mean? So you also have to question. So did she just stop looking for Moustache? Like, did she? Like, as soon as she called Moustache for dinner and the Moustache never came, was she like, oh well? You know what I mean? I mean, like, that happened like a few days before the party, so you have to question, why was she not paying more attention to looking for the cat? And then another thing is, like, obviously she ran away when her mum was asking for help, but you also have to question, like, at 10 years old, like, I know obviously, like, she's still a little girl at 10 years old, and mental health wasn't really spoken about, and she was scared, she was alone, it was just her dealing with it. But you would also have to question, like, why would a 10-year-old run away? Like, why would she run away? Like, her mum wasn't acting manic, her mum wasn't, shouting or throwing things around or anything. She was literally looked weak as hell and asked her for some help, and the little girl decided to run away. And you have to question, like, is that, I mean, like, if she was like 2, 3, that's different because little kids, they don't understand anything, not really. But at 10, you kind of would understand, especially if you've been dealing with this for a little while. And um, so, yeah, and another thing that makes me question, is she stupid or is she just evil? Um, or is she just stupid or is she evil? Now she knows her. She knows her when she comes to the realization that she has to be alone. When she realizes, okay, I need to be alone. She knows her ex-boyfriend who actually cares about her, not like her husband who just, doesn't want to deal with it. Like her ex-boyfriend is really supportive and helping her, and like she knows that he's a police officer. So why would you bring, if you really wanted to be alone, why would you bring your phone with you knowing, or even if, I mean, like, she's even rich enough to, she could even afford to leave her car at home and rent a car. If she really, really, really wanted to go off the grid, she, number one, would have gotten rid of that phone because she'd know that, her ex-boyfriend will be, looking her up, like looking at her GPS and probably trying to find her. And also he'll probably want to trace her car as well because he's worried about her, he knows everything that's happening. So it's almost like she knew what was going to happen, and as soon as she saw him, yeah, she ran back inside, but at the same time, it's like, she should have, number one, like left her car in the city and rented a car. And number two, she should have left her phone at home, and yeah, so that at least there wouldn't be anywhere to trace her. And obviously she went to her childhood home, which is fine, like earlier it was a bit like a foreshadow because earlier in the movie her sister asks her, oh, why don't you just sell the house, blah blah blah. But obviously she's sentimental, she don't really want to sell it because they grew up in the house. But like, I'm sure, like, she could have went somewhere completely different, even rented a cabin somewhere else, somewhere far away, or found somewhere else, to stay other than somewhere that's so predictable. Her sister would know, okay, she's not at home, she's not here, she's not there. Oh, maybe I should check our childhood cabin, or maybe the ex-boyfriend probably knows about that as well. I mean, it's just different things, so you have to question, was she stupid or was she evil? And is this all her karma coming back to her, like 20 years of people suffering, and it's like it goes in a full cycle and comes straight back to her. Anyway, yeah, it's crazy as well if you think about it, because it's like a giant like butterfly effect. Like, had she not picked up that phone, like, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, maybe I just have really poor work ethic. I mean, that obviously she was a workaholic, she loved her job, but probably I have really poor work ethic. But if I had my phone ringing when I already left the office on my way home, I am not going back to the office to answer it. I'm going home. They can call a different department. Like, that is just me. So it's funny how one tiny, tiny little thing could literally, like, one tiny little thing, just picking up that phone call could spiral your whole life into a huge mess. Like, that butterfly effect was just like amazing, actually. I mean, not in like a good way, but more like in a wow, like powerful way. More like a wow, it just took one little phone call and that's it. I mean, even if she picked up the phone and then told at reception, oh, by the way, so there's a patient coming in, can you ask someone else to handle it? No one told her to stay. But anyway, that's it basically. But so now we've finished with the analysis, I want to go on to other people's experiences. Now, obviously, this movie is very original, but at the same time, it is and it isn't, because have you ever heard of the Smiling Man? Yeah. Have you ever heard, right, if you don't know about the Smiling Man, apparently he's over 7 feet tall, well, over 6 feet tall, like between 6 and 7 feet tall. He wears like a bright green or bright blue coat, and he's known to have like really large eyes and no nose, but then a giant smile, a smile that's like so big and creepy. And apparently, if you see the Running Man, I mean the Smiling Man, Running Man, like it's basically like an old wives' tale, like an old, well, not an old wives' tale, but like a myth, you know. Like, I personally haven't seen the Smiling Man, but there's been a few people in the past who have said that they've seen the Smiling Man. You know, like as I actually watched Hayley Reese's video on the Smiling Man. If you don't know who Hayley Reese is, she's another YouTuber. She's really great. She does a lot of videos on like the supernatural and different experiences and exorcism and different things like that. So I'm gonna put the link for her video in the description. I want you to check it out and just see like what you think, and you'll probably see that it does remind you of the movie Smile as well, because there's different things that she says in the video that sort of reminds me of, you know, like the movie, like the fact that, you know, this guy who, one thing that she said that did remind me of the movie is this guy supposedly reported to say that he used to go on like late night walks, and then one day he saw this guy and he had this big massive smile, but he was like sort of dance walking, but then he'll take these big gliding steps towards him, and he would be so quick, and he ran away, but then, you know, like it's a lot, but it's scary at the same time because you think, oh my god. And I think the reason why this movie is also really scary is, putting the Smiling Man aside, even if you don't even think of the Smiling Man, or if you don't even know about the Smiling Man, after I watched this movie, like, you know, when you vision yourself inside of a situation, I'm visioning like my family members and friends just looking at me with like this big massive smile. It literally creeped me out. Also, when me and my boyfriend come out of the cinema, there's this crazy guy. Well, we think he's crazy, but he was like this short Indian guy. I think he's Indian. I'm not too sure, but he looked Indian, with like a long beard and these big sunglasses, and he was just standing there. Like, he wasn't smiling, don't worry, but he was just standing there. Like, he had like bags as well, like a couple like Tesco bags, and he was just standing there. I was like, oh my god, like look, like look at that guy. And my boyfriend was like, oh my god, why is he just standing there like that? And that was like literally after the movie, so that literally creeped us out. Like, even the vision, like seeing it in my mind, it's still creepy. But he was just a crazy guy though. He's not like, anyway, I start to vision like my family members and friends, you know, just standing around giving this big smile. And in the movie, it's like she sees people that she thinks is people, but it's not people. Or sometimes it's strangers, sometimes it's people she knows, sometimes it's people that she knows is already dead. It's just like super scary. So the reason why I found this movie so triggering as well is because, okay, so do you remember when I done that video on the part one of me me defeating a room full of spiders? Like, do you remember that movie? I mean, that video, not movie. I'm not necessarily talking about me, you know, cleaning up all the baby spiders. I'm mainly talking about the spider that was on my ceiling and that had crawled onto my curtain. Since then, Um, my washing machine. It's my fault. I'm always doing laundry at the wrong time. But anyway, since then I've been hallucinating spiders, and I know that sounds crazy. I wanted to just talk a bit about my own mental health here. So sometimes it takes something to trigger something else, like hallucinations. I'm no stranger to hallucinations. Don't worry, I'm not saying I'm seeing things, but like when I was, for example, when I was obsessed with like you know who, um, sometimes I'll be walking down the road and I could swear I see her, and like, but then as the person come closer to me, it's not her, you know, and that happened to me like all the time. It was like crazy. Whenever I tried to explain to someone or talk about it, they looked at me like I'm mad. So then I just stopped talking about it. But yeah, so that stopped. But now ever since that spider on my ceiling, I've been hallucinating spiders. So I used to have this fear which I conquered actually, and it was basically like me being scared of the dark. Because the reason why I used to be scared of the dark as well is because I used to see things like when we was like in my old house, like my childhood home, we used to have like these this big massive window and the net curtains, but the net curtains obviously like are really patterny. It was the 90s. Anyway, and sometimes I could swear I'll see a face in the net curtains. Or we had this, another reason why I was so scared of clowns is we had this lampshade, and on the lampshade there's basically like this clown sitting on a swing. And me and my sister remembers this, so I know it's not a hallucination because it's not just me. Like as soon as you turn on the light, sometimes the clown would like spin around on the swing. I'm not saying around the room, but just like the swing would turn basically, and or the swing will just start swinging, like not like in a way of like going like this, like proper swinging, but in a way of is that is it just me or is that swinging? You know what I mean? Like it's like ever so slightly. And I was petrified of the dark. I really was. Like, there's a few other reasons why I was scared of the dark, but yeah, there also so now I can't really sleep um in the dark because again, but ever since that spider thing, you know, I'll be asleep, or no, I'll be in bed and I'll take off my light and I'll lie in bed. And as soon as I turn and I look up, I could swear I see a spider crawling on my ceiling. I'd swear blind that I see a shadow of a spider crawling on my ceiling. And I'll leap up, turn on my light, and nothing's there. And that was happening for like a couple months, like a couple months. It's only recently that it stopped, um, but then like I think it was like last week or the week before, I don't know. There was a massive monster of a spider right there on my wall. And the scary thing is, I was just in my room. I didn't see anything. I came home, took off my trainers, took off my coat. You know, like there was literally nothing. You know, like there's nothing around. Like, and then split second later, I thought, oh yeah, I forgot my phone. So I came back in here, and that is when I saw it. This gigantic spider, and I was like when I see a spider, I'm just like, I have the same reaction. I think that someone in a horror movie has, like, you know, when like they're looking at something like they can't believe it, like you know when you're I don't know, you know when you watch like a disaster movie and you see, and like the person sees like this big massive tsunami coming towards them and they have this look of horror. Like, that is me. Like, I see it and I'm just like, that's basically what it is. Man, the door! I'm coming out. I jumped up too quick. Anyway, yeah, so that's basically what's been happening, and ever since then, I've been again hallucinating spiders crawling on my wall, just like it was on the ceiling. And then the other day, I could swear I saw a spider in my air vent, and I stayed up the whole entire night. Um, I could swear I saw it, and I stayed up all night, and because I was convinced it was coming out of the vent. Like, the more I looked at that vent, the more I could see legs coming out of the vent, and I could see it, and like my heart was going, everything like was petrified, like basically petrified. I was online, I was buying like spider killer. I have bought these foam rods to block that vent because I'm sure there's a nest. I don't know. 1 minute. Yeah? Um, so anyway, basically it's like, so I can totally relate with like hallucinations, and that movie triggered, like I was so triggered by that movie, traumatized and triggered. And now whenever I see someone smart, I feel creeped out. I really do. But yeah, anyway, that's basically my movie review, recap, analysis. Basically, my nan is here. Um, but yeah. Anyway, there's a shout out to you, Nan, because I can hear you on the video. But yeah, so I'm no stranger to hallucinations, and so that movie just tripped me out. I'm still tripped out, like I really am. I see things, I always see things. I'll either see a shadow, not because of the movie, it's just me genuinely. I'll see a shadow, or I'll see something that looks like a face, or I'll see, it's just, yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows, maybe I'm not crazy. Anyway, I'm gonna close up this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the nice things, turn on your notifications, share, and thank you so much for watching this video. Bye.